Hello, welcome to the Great Outdoors. Today we're going to take you on a road trip. We're going to go from Enterprise, Alabama and drive 84 across the state of Georgia and end up in Brunswick and then on to St. Simon's Island and do some work there. When we started out, we were excited about the trip. I can remember only going as far as Donaldsonville, Georgia. That's about as far as I've ever been into the state of Georgia from in the south. We used to go through Georgia up 95 and 75 to get to New York many years ago. But the actual South Georgia, from Donaldsonville all the way across to Valdosta and those places, really never had any time to spend there. So we were excited about what was we were going to see. We were anxious to get over. We had some friends that we wanted to meet over on the East Coast, so we were kind of anxious to get there. And we did some sightseeing over there in St. Simon's and St. Simon's Island. Fredrica, there's an old fort and an old settlement there. We went and checked that out. But on the way back we decided we would dedicate the entire day to finding side trips, and we started the day out. It was Friday. For the first 2.5 hours, we stayed right there in St. Simon's Island and videotaped. They've got a fishing pier there where there's a lot of fish being caught. They netted for shrimp, and shrimp boats ran right there up and down the shore next to the pier. The beach was there. The little shopping plaza was there. The Lighthouse Museum. It was just a great little village, and we spent most of the morning there. There's this big gigantic bridge that you go across the river waterway to head back 84 towards Valdosta and all the points headed west. When we got to Waycross, Georgia, we found a place, a little side trip off of 84. It was called the Okefenoke Swamp Park, and it was on the northern end of the Okefenoke Swamp, and it was really a nice little place. It was a great place to bring kids. They had a boat ride and a train ride, and they have shows. They have animated bears and things that put on a show. They have a wildlife show. They've got reptiles and just a lot of different stuff. So come with us and enjoy our trip throughout the South here in South Georgia, here in the Great Outdoors. Gin mill right there. You see the cotton all over the road here. There's the bales that they've got to here in Donaldsonville, Georgia. Yep, this is a place that back in 1968 May 4th or 5th, I don't remember. We got married in this little town, in the courthouse in Donaldsonville, Georgia. And this is where we're at. And the year is 2012. It's not May, it's October. So that was a long time ago. Lots changed since those happy days. See the cotton sitting in the field that's already been picked and ready to be picked up by truck. Most of the fields here in Georgia have watering systems. You see a whole lot of that in Alabama. Only the bigger farms. It might be soybean. It's got to turn yellow before it's ready to be picked. Gas is a little bit more expensive here. It's $3.63 a gallon. This is Grady, Georgia. One giant pecan orchard right here. That's for sure. Small, friendly, it's just beautiful. You know, some people, oh, it don't matter what I say, but it's just, I love the South. Gas prices are a little higher. I don't know how these people can afford it, but it's 13 or 14 cents more than we pay. Some of the old mills are still here. But the greatest thing about the South is the churches. You can find a church on almost every corner. And they're probably going to be Assembly of God or Baptist. Maybe a Methodist church every once in a while. But look at this, is Quitman, City of Quitman. There's City Hall. And it's just an old southern town. It's the #1 Jeep dealer in the nation. Good for him. Live around here, you gotta have a Jeep. If I wasn't in a hurry, I'd be stopping. It's been a while since I've been on the open road. I was really hesitant about it. I got this thing about wanting to be home all the time, and I'll tell you, right now, I feel good. I'm surprised. I really feel good. Excited about getting out and seeing this part of the country. So we'll see. I always got my medication if I have a problem. Neat how these TomTom GPSs, they'll pick up the speed limit. As soon as you see a sign, if you look at your GPS, it'll switch to that number. It's kind of amazing that they can have that technology. Another small town here in southeast Georgia. You see a lot of Spanish moss in the trees, especially in the pecan trees, and it is actually killing the trees. Loss of a tree can be a loss of a lot of money. These are big old trees, and I'm sure they produce a lot of pecans, and the loss of those trees by this moss, it's got to be devastating after a while. I mean, it gets in all the trees, all of them. We're here at 75. If we were headed to Florida, we'd be heading south on 75, which means that we should be have already changed the time zone. Should be Eastern time, but I don't know. I have to check. We're going to stop here shortly to take a little break. This is Valdosta. I think that's what the sign said. It looks like it's the biggest city that we've seen so far. They even have a federal building. Isn't that nice? Valdosta alignment. South Florida that's a pecan company right there. Here is that South Georgia is taking on a lot of the looks of North Florida. I know that they border each other, but I mean, it's just funny coming out of Alabama almost in a straight line and you're back into the flats. I don't think we've gone 10 feet one way or the other, up or down, since we hit the state of Georgia. It's a lot more swampy here. We must be close to the Okefenoke Swamp because we're beginning to see some little ponds. Of course, they're covered with that green slime that you see in the swamps and things. A lot of that stuff you'd see in Florida. I forget what the name of it is now. A lot of property for sale. Get closer to the coast, we're getting bigger and bigger cities. This is Waycross across is large city. They have a very, very large train depot. Tracks go everywhere over there. Just came up to the top of it. I didn't think about recording. Tried to remember to do that on the way back. But this is way across, and we're in a traffic jam. Bridge over there. That bridge we saw, we're going over, so.
When I finally reached St. Simons Island, I noticed that the small streets and shops and so forth was pretty similar to Palm Beach and some of the other island towns. So we drove around the little parking area. It's very similar to the parking areas in downtown Lake Worth, except Lake Worth is actually on the ocean itself, where St. Simons Island is on the river, and the outlet headed out to the open sea. The water's different, completely different than the open water. Well, actually, that may be the open water right there. I don't really know. I didn't. There's so many connections to inland lakes and rivers and so forth that it was just hard to tell which was ocean. It was kind of strange to see the shrimp boats coming up the inlet right there next to the dock. But that's what that is. That's a shrimp boat, and they had all their nets out. And they say that the shrimping is a big industry right there. And if you go around to some of the inlets and say, you'll see lots and lots of shrimp boats and fishing boats. We then walked into Neptune Park. Neptune Park is the park. There's a museum, the lighthouse, and shops and things were there. We have a beautiful little beach, but it's really only accessible when the tide is out. When the tide is in, the water is all the way up into the rocks, and you really just can't get to the water. But while we were there, there was people in there using nets to try to get shrimp and things, and fishing and all kinds of things. And here's the bridge that we came over to get to Jekyll and St. Simons and all the islands that connect to New Brunswick. It's a beautiful structure, and it was just a beautiful day. Well, before you knew it, it's time to head out. We're headed up to a place a little bit farther north on the island called, it was a British settlement called Fredrica, and that's where we're headed. This is the entrance to Fort Fredrica National Monument, and we'll be right back. Inside the lobby of the first building, they have samples of the clothing that was worn during the establishment of this colony, and they even have some that you can even try on, see what you look like. These were remnants that were discovered when the archaeologists came in here and began to excavate this property. And you can see just exactly what these items were. Nose auger, I don't know if I want to know what you do with that. But, you know, they had ink wells and pipes and bottles that they had made or brought over. It's an old iron. I've seen one of those at my grandma's house. Some buckles. Kinds of things. There's not much left out there now. In the early 18th century, Europeans called the land lying between the British South Carolina and Spanish Florida the debatable land. Today's state of Georgia was then the center of a centuries-old imperial conflict between the Spanish and the British. After the philanthropist James Oglethorpe founded the colony of Georgia in 1733 to provide a place where poor debtors could settle, colonists from England and Scotland and refugees from the German electorate of the Palatinate built Fort Fredrica in 1736 to defend their new territory. If they had newspapers back then, the headline would have been "Centuries-Old Conflict Decided on St. Simons Island." Georgia's fate was decided in 1742 when Spanish and British forces clashed on St. Simons Island. Fort Frederica's troops defeated the Spanish, ensuring Georgia's future as a British colony. Today, the archaeological remnants of Frederica are protected by the National Park Service. Weapons at that time were a necessity. The Spanish were always trying to take over Georgia. They had a stronghold and were in charge of Florida. This is a drawing of a typical house that was built in 1700s in Georgia. Now the fort and the houses were built from a pretty tough material they called tabby. Tabby is a construction material. It's like concrete. It's made of oyster shells, lime, sand, and water, which has several. And this tabby was poured in 1 foot layers. Now you can see that the only thing left in the walls of these houses here, this was a duplex, is the oyster shells. And that everything else kind of just disintegrated, and that was all that's left. That and the brick, the fireplaces, the steps, and things like that are the only real artifacts that you find. There is warnings all over the park that if you see an artifact, don't touch it. Get in touch with a park ranger and they'll handle it. You don't want to ever get caught taking an artifact. I believe it's a felony. But you can see the foundations. They have small foundations dug into the ground. Brick fireplaces. Bricks weren't that great when it first started, but they learned what to get the clay and to make better bricks, and the houses, the foundations, are still standing today. This is the only piece of the fort that was left, and that's the Fredrica is protected, said a visitor in 1743, by a pretty strong fort of Tabby, which has several 18-pounders mounted on a ravelin, a triangular embankment that projects out from the main ditch of a fort so it will be closest to the enemy in its front, and commands the river both upwards and downwards, and is surrounded by quadrangular rampart, an elevated fortification with 4 bastions, the projecting part of a rampart of earth, well stockaded and turfed, and a palisade, a wall of cedar posts, or a ditch. It's on the water that there's something under the water that is disturbing the flow, and supposedly that's parts of the fort. The fort actually went out into the water to try to ward off any would-be intruders, Spanish intruders, because this was a semi-English colony. There's a big fish out there, probably a shark, the way that thing's rolling. The first shipload of 114 people left England under the leadership of one of the colony's trustees, General James Edward Oglethorpe. He actually was the founder of this Fredrica, and he lived from 1696 to 1785. Reaching Georgia in 1733, this first group of settlers established a town on the Savannah River that they called Savannah. As settlement was not the only purpose in founding Georgia, Oglethorpe sailed down the coast in 1734 to look for strategic points to fortify against the Spanish. Oglethorpe staked out 84 separate lots, most of them measuring 60 by 90 feet. The main thoroughfare, which divided the town into 2 wards, was Broad Street, and the street was 75 feet wide, shaded by orange trees, and ran from the fort to the town gates. Each family received a lot in town for building a house, 1 acre for a garden just outside the town, and 50 acres in the country to grow crops. The first houses were palmetto huts. These huts were woven by a Brazilian that Oglethorpe brought into the colony for that purpose. Francis Moore, the town's first recorder, wrote that the palmetto huts were about 20 by 14 feet, and that when viewed from a distance the town looked like a tent city. Within a year, those temporary houses gave way to substantial houses built of wood, tabby, and brick in the Georgian style popular at that time. By 1739, the town was enclosed with a palisade, or wall of cedar posts 12 inches thick and set upright. The entrance to the enclosure was through 2 gates, one known as the land portal and the other is the water portal. The wall around the town gave a sense of security to the inhabitants, who knew they lived in constant danger. A moat or ditch was dug at the foot of the wall. In case of an attack, a sluice gate would be opened to allow water from the river to enter. Hey, we'll be right back, right after this very important message. Welcome back. Stopped at the old fort. This is all that remains of the old fort. That's the powder bunker, and was so fortified that it lasted all these years. The British flag still flies proudly over the old remains of the old fort that has so much tied into the Georgia history. The last stop on our tour is the old barracks. The barracks used to be a big square, a set of buildings that and that was the main entrance, and it is all that remains. Well, it's time to head out of Fort Fredrica and start headed west towards Enterprise. If you need more information about Fort Fredrica, contact the National Park Service at Fort Fredrica National Monument, 6515 Fredrica Road, St. Simons Island, Georgia, 31522. Or you can phone them at 912-638-3639 or email the park. Or you can go to the website, which is www.nps.gov/FOFR/contacts.htm. Time to leave St. Simons Island, and it was a very beautiful trip. It's a pretty island. If you're in the water, this is a nice place to go, but it's a little costly. And it's time to go across the St. Simons Bridge, and after we crossed the bridge, we realized that there was a giant ship just docked up the river just a little bit. And you can just barely see it in the in this shot right here. It's what looks like a building. It's a car carrier, and coming out of the port of Georgia are these big trucks full of cars from all over the world. And as we approached Waycross, we began to see the sawmills and things. Plus, we knew that we had to head to the swamp. We were this close, we were going to go. So we pulled up the map on the GPS and headed for the swamp.
Just off Highway 23 is the entrance to the Okefenoke Swamp Park, which is also the headwaters of the Swanee River. So this is just a small side trip that you can take when you're running that 84 across Alabama. To get to Alabama or to Georgia, and you can go see what the Okefenoke Swamp is all about. Hello, welcome to Great Outdoors Productions. We're here at the Okefenoke Park, which is actually the northern end, is it?
North entrance.
North entrance to the Okefenoke Swamp. This is Martin Bell, and he's the manager here at this park. Martin, tell me a little bit about your operations here at the Okefenoke Park.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming. We're glad to have you. This is Okefenoke Swamp Park on US 1 South, the north entrance of the Okefenoke Swamp Park, south of Waycross, Georgia. We do guided boat excursions, we have train tours, we have an Eye on Nature show, and we have different swamp critters in their natural habitats for all ages to come and enjoy us.
Okay, and what are your entrance fees?
Well, they're kind of like a menu type of thing. If you want to do the full package, the guided boat excursion and everything that I name, include your general admission, is $25 for adults and $20 for children 3 to 11. 2 and under is free. If you don't want to get on the boat tour, which a lot of people do and really enjoy the boat tour, that's how to see the Okefenoke Swamp. You can do the train and the general admission for $15 for adults and $14 for children.
Okay, how long does it usually take from the minute you walk in the door, get your ticket, and start the tour until you've seen just about everything?
We generally tell everybody 3.5 to 4 hours. That's a pretty good pace to get everything in, and we usually have everything running on the hour. But you know, we have some groups that actually do it faster than that to get back on the chartered buses, and we have some families that'll spend the day with us. But generally 3.5 to 4 hours.
And your hours?
We're open 9 to 5:30, 363 days a year. We're closed Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, Thanksgiving Day, and New Year's Day.
Okay. Martin, tell me a little bit about the facilities for handicap individuals that want to come to your park.
Yes, sir. We have, sidewalks. All our restroom facilities are ADA accessible, and the train tour is. We have a ramp that they can get on and off. On the boat excursion, because we don't have the floating docks, we have to allow for them to be able to help themselves on the boats. But generally, we're ADA friendly.
Is there any place where like you can go and just get an aerial view of your activities here?
Yes, sir, we do. We're proud that we're the only entrance right now that has an observation tower. You have to walk out by the boardwalks, and we have a new low walkway that's just opened this spring and summer, where the guest actually gets down and right on top of the actual Okefenoke Swamp, and actually a bird's eye view of the ecosystem. And they can walk out there and require some physical activity, up and down some steps, and then climb to the top of a 90-foot observation tower where you actually, up in the above the treetop.
I didn't see a snap turtle. There's one coming up there. Huh? This is old Roy. Roy has been stuffed. He's a very large alligator. Even I would fit into his belly. Animal presentation, and their shows are at 12, 2, and 4. They have alligators and all kinds of swamp life. Now this is an old Roy. This is a real live actual alligator, and he's just laying up on the bank, and he probably gets fed during the shows, and he's been trained to react to food. But he's alive and well. This is the stage where they put on their live presentation about swamp life and things. And they talk about Indians and the life back in the swamp for the Indians. These are baby alligators that they show you and are on display. This you may see around your yard. This is a copperhead. It is poisonous. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is something you don't want to run into. This is a cottonmouth water moccasin. He is a bad boy. These guys put on a show every hour, and they got their own little auditorium where you can sit and watch the show in between all the other shows that go on the hour. They're animatronic bears. They put on a great show. They're funny. The kids love it, and you will too. It's at the Okefenoke Swamp Park, and you'll really have a good time.
Hey Billy Bob, we got a song we made especially for you to sing.
But I'm playing the guitar.
Well, I really got to tell you that they had the reptile shows and all the animals and the different things that go on here at this park, it's well worth the price of admission. The train ride, I'm not going to tell you about any of the attractions, the train ride, the boat ride, or any of the other shows. I want you to come and check them out yourself. What you're seeing is just the pictures of the things that are just in plain view. And the rest, you need to bring your family and check it out. It's a great time. The price is right. It's not that far from home. From Enterprise, it's probably 3 hours or so, maybe a little bit further. The people that work there are courteous and friendly, and just a bunch of beautiful southern people. Get on the boat ride, see what it's like to live in the swamp, and then the train ride it's well worth it. And while you're in the area, you'll also see the Georgia Alliance Club Camp for the Blind. It's right there by the park. It's time to head back towards Enterprise, and we'd like to special thanks to go out to the Okefenoke Swamp Park for all his help in putting this video together, and for allowing us to come to his park. And we hope that you've enjoyed this video, and that you will take the time to get the family out and just do some traveling and see some of this beautiful country of ours. And you don't have to spend a fortune. Just look for the right places to go. Okefenoke Park is definitely one of them. This country is, we're just lucky to have a beautiful country like this. And for Great Outdoors Productions saying thanks for joining us, and look for us here the next time, here in the Great Outdoors. Thanks. God bless.